These are hazelnuts that were gathered during season 2 of the Wilderness Living Challenge. So they've been hanging around in my kitchen for about 10 months. When I was eating wild foods for a 35-day period, I sort of picked at these occasionally and added them to some of my meals, but I didn't really get around to processing the majority of them. And so I decided that now that they're really dry, it's probably about time to put on a leather glove, rub the skins off, get rid of all those little prickly hairs, and then start to really just process these down into finished nuts. So as I do this, I'm just looking for ones that have the weevil holes, so you can see this one here has clearly been weevilled, so I'm going to save myself the trouble and just throw that one away right off the hop. Those ones are good. These are ones that I skinned already, and then this would be one that, for example, I did not skin already. And you might recall that I tried cutting the beaks off of these beaked hazels, thinking that that would help to dry the skins out faster. I'm not sure if it made a difference or not, but now I should just be able to kind of roll them in my fingers, and that strips off the dried skin. Now if I was to crack that open, you'll see that what's inside is a dried nut meat. So if I give one of these little nut meats a try, they're not crunchy, they're kind of soft textured, and they have a really great hazelnut kind of a flavor. I think the flavor is better than the hazelnuts that you buy as the commercial variety. So I'm going to go ahead and finish processing these guys down, and then think about what we're going to do with them. I'm pretty sure I'm not using the most efficient method of hulling these. If you read archaeological accounts of site excavations, they often reference roasting pits that have lots of charred remains of different nuts, and it's not really clear to me whether they are roasting and shelling, or if they're just roasting enough to dry the skins off for preservation, whether they're putting them in dry and then roasting them to further process them, or whether they're putting them in there wet and roasting them to quickly, like to expedite the drying process. So these are some things that I'm not very sure about that I'm hoping to learn more about, especially for these hazelnuts. Not that they're in a huge abundance in my area, but they are very tasty. It's very difficult to get them before the squirrels and especially the chipmunks get at them, but you can find in different years find a decent quantity of them, but they do have these little hairs on the covering, and they're really irritating, especially if you get them under your fingernails or in by a hangnail. They'll make you crazy. And I thought I'd be able to rub all these skins off with the glove, but there's a lot of them that I have to still manually peel a little bit, and so that's kind of slowing me down quite a bit. I'm almost through what I've got here, so I'll just finish that up, and then we're going to count them. Look at that. If the camera's going to bring that into focus, I got a lot of blood under my thumbnail from basically picking apart the skins here. Good thing I'm almost at the end. I changed my technique a little bit, so now what I'm doing is using my linesman pliers and just pinching the skin off the side, and then usually with just a couple rolls with the glove, I can get that nut meat out. There's one that's got a weevil in it. So that's saving my fingers, and it's actually more effective than picking at it with my fingers as well, so it's a little bit safer and a little bit faster. Just pinching side skin there and rolling the rest of the skin off. So that seems to be expediting the process here. And I'm almost done. I think there's 8 more in here, and we'll count up, see how many there were in total. Okay. $272 beaked hazelnuts. And now we shell them. Just like that, and repeat 272 times. If you don't hit it too hard, you crack all the shell, and then the nut meat comes out in one piece. I think because the hazelnuts are not brittle, unlike the acorn nuts, if you hit the acorn nuts too hard, the nut meats shatter and end up all mixed in with the, that's a bad one. They end up all mixed in with the shells. But because the hazelnuts are kind of soft inside, They're more of a chewier, leathery texture. You can hit the shells a little bit harder, and the nut meats are there, so you can like fold that in half. It's really softish, so that makes a difference in how you process them compared to an acorn. Breaking them open on a soft surface like this glove, or just a different piece of leather. That was a bad one. Or even a bath towel. What it does is it holds the nut in place, so when you hit it, it doesn't go flying across your living room. Or if you're working outdoors, it doesn't go flying off into the detritus where you won't find it again. So it saves you a lot of lost nut meats, for sure. This one here, most of them are in pretty good condition. There's a pretty good range of sizes of nut meats here, so from fairly small and flat to a little bit larger and meatier. They don't really look very much like they do when they're fresh. When they're fresh, they're more like a water chestnut, I guess. Crunchier and have quite a bit of water in them and a sweeter flavor. But drying them out seems to bring out their hazel flavor, which is really nice. So I'm getting there. My hands got smaller and I put on my favorite purple shirt. Or do I have a helper now? You want to say something, Monkey? No?
You're smashing.
You're smashing? What worked better? The axe hammer or the pliers?
Axe hammer.
Axe hammer? What's wrong with that axe hammer?
Part of it's cut off.
It's all broken, eh? It's kind of embarrassing actually, because I do have some really nice axes, but it doesn't really matter. There's my Wetterling's axe, got a Hulpafors, got a nice Grand First Brooks splitting maul that I haven't even had a chance to use yet.
This one used to be a kid's one, but like a smaller one.
A kindling splitter.
Yeah, but now it's just broke.
Now it's just broken. But I still use it all the time for splitting kindling at the stove, and now for smashing nuts. You could even just use a rock. In fact, when they're fresh and they're in their green, their little green cover, you can just put them on a rock, and if you hit them just hard enough with another rock, they basically split almost perfectly in half. And then what you do is you grab the beak of the sheath and you peel it backwards, and the whole thing will almost open perfectly in half, and then you can eat the nut fresh.
Also, another way, like one time when I opened the nut, it had this tiny little, it looked like a tiny little yellow thing.
Yeah.
But that was like something that ate the.
Yeah, you opened one and you thought it had a tiny, tiny nut meat, but it actually had a tiny little dried out weevil. So this is our progress to date. We're getting there.
We still have a lot more.
Yeah. Oh, the camera's pointing down here, Monkey. Yeah, we're getting there though, right? Pretty soon we're going to take a lunch break. A not Wild Foods lunch. We'll check back in. There's the last three. Look at how small that little piece of nut meat is. And 2 of those 3 were duds. So 272 harvested down, and that's less than I can fit in my hand. Now there were a bunch of duds, and then interestingly some of them actually had 2 kernels in them, but I'm going to count these up and we'll see how many nut meats we ended up with. That's 100. 100. $236. So more than a few duds in there. So let's look at some nutritional information for beaked hazelnuts. This comes from nutritionvalue.org, which is pretty much the first nutritional information if I search for nutrition on any wild food. If it's available, it seems to be available on this website. And here we're looking at nutritional facts for 100 grams, which is the equivalent of about 250 nut meats. So this is approximately the same amount, fortunately, as what I just processed. So what's interesting here is there are 600 calories in that amount. There's 53 grams of fat out of 100 grams, so it's more than 50% calories from fat. Total carbohydrates are 23 grams. There's a whole lot of dietary fiber in that amount of nut meats, 9.8 grams. And if you're still following along with me on the nutrition facts form there are 15 grams of protein and a lot of iron and a lot of calcium. So 17% of your daily iron and 44% of your daily calcium. So, all in all, it seemed like a lot of work to process those down, but there is not an insignificant amount of calories nor of nutrition in the hazelnuts. And so I think they're probably worth it if you find them in abundance and you can store them aside, and especially if the processing of them does not impede your foraging for other foods. If you're doing it in what would otherwise be downtime, they're definitely worthwhile. Thanks for following along. See you guys on the next adventure.